I have the honor of introducing Professor White today, and I've had 2 classes with him. That's why I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce him today. I had religious terrorism and history of warfare with him. And I have an interesting story. When I signed up for history of warfare, you probably won't like this, but I really didn't sign up for the class because I cared about how the Greeks and the Romans fought, but because I wanted to take another class with you. So that's just a little secret over here. Professor White, but I did enjoy the class afterward. So as a disclaimer. Professor White earned his master's degree and bachelor degree in history from Western Michigan University. He holds a master in divinity from Western Theological Seminary. He also has a Ph.D. from Michigan State University in multi-disciplinary social sciences. In his earlier career, he served in the SWAT team with the Jackson, Michigan Police Force. He was a former dean of the social science and director of School of Criminal Justice at Grand Valley. He serves as a professor and chair of the liberal arts studies and as an executive director of the Homeland Defense Initiative. Professor White is the author of Terrorism and the Homeland Security, which was published in 2006, and Defending the Homeland, that came out in 2004. But he also writes on extremism, terrorism, or his writing on extremism and terrorism dates back to the early 1980s, or the mid-1980s. Today, Professor White consults widely on terrorism using his predictive model, and since 9/11 has been a frequent advisor to thousands of police departments, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Secret Service, the U.S. Department of Justice, State and Homeland Security, and he has received awards from the Department of Justice, the FBI, the Michigan House of Representatives for his work after 9/11 directing the state and local anti-terrorism training. He also won awards for teaching courses in the history and the criminal justice departments, and he's one of the world's most foremost authors on the Middle Eastern extremism and religious terrorism. Just a little note on, when you have a class with Professor White, he will literally tell you every single day how much he enjoys teaching. And for some people, it sounds like, what does he do and why is that? But if you read his teaching philosophy, it really reflects on he deeply cares about his students and really cares about what he's doing in the classroom. And I think from his classes, and also if you talk to him, this is his passion, teaching and passing on the knowledge to younger generation. And just on his teaching philosophy, he says teaching in the liberal studies is simply the greatest, most rewarding job imaginable. It's the fulfillment of a spiritual and intellectual job imaginable. Wait a minute. Quest. Sorry. It's the fulfillment of a spiritual and intellectual quest. I have worked in zones torn by religious violence and terrorism in different parts of the world. One of the best preventative actions against such mayhems is to learn to approach problems with justice, understanding, and unbearable human compassion. And he really, really reflects that in his classroom with all his students, even outside of the classroom. And please help me welcome Professor White.
That was really nice, thank you.
Would you mind, so we can
sure.
all hear you?
Can I shut this?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
And then if you want to pop on your lapel.
Okay. I'm used to these. Wow, thanks, Petra. Wow, that was very nice. Actually, I just like to be plain old John, who happened to study the right thing at the right time, and too old and broken down to be in the Marine Corps. I've trained a lot of Marines. I'm really glad they're on our side. They're scary to look at. But it was a chance to serve. President Murray gave me that chance to serve by creating the Homeland Defense Initiative, and I'm very grateful to him. In fact, a new book just came out in January, and it's dedicated to President Murray in gratitude for that. It's really a pleasure to teach. I get to do everything, and President Haas and the provost have allowed me to continue, and I'm extremely grateful to Grand Valley State. Well, I came here today to talk about leadership, and our camera is on right now. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. We'll leave the camera on right now, and then we're going to turn it off in just a little bit, because what I'm going to do is talk about leadership, and I'm going to draw on my experiences as my class commander in ROTC, as the commander of our cadet commando company, as a leader on the Jackson Police Department, later as the founding director of the School of CJ, and then because they couldn't find anybody as Dean of Social Science. Just reflect on that. I am trying very hard to get out of leadership positions because I enjoy teaching so much. But there is a responsibility with it, and it's going to be your responsibility now. President Lubbers took me aside, this was all before 9/11, because he was convinced that I was going to be a provost or a president somewhere, and that sounded pretty good to me. 9/11 changed a lot of ideas. But he gave me a series, just a list of things that one needed for academic leadership. And I kept it. It was very important to me. President Lubbers was very important to me. And this is just wisdom from, well, these are thoughts, meanderings of an old man who was not doing it quite as well as President Lubbers. First of all, you guys are part of the 1%. 1% of the world has a college education. Petra, I know you've heard me say that before. Ian, I know you've heard me say that before. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do with that? That's leadership. First is responsibility. You have to be responsible for everything when you're a leader. You cannot pass it off to your subordinates. You gave them the assignment, they screwed it up, it belongs to you. You can hold them accountable, but the mistakes belong to you. Delegating authority, try to get the authority down to its lowest level and solve problems at the lowest level. That's a wonderful way to handle problems. Select the best people that you can select. However, you're not going to get to select everybody, especially if some of the people you're selecting have tenure. So deal with the people you have and meet them where you are. George Patton said, if a person has given you everything that he is capable of giving you, there's no sense in asking him for any more, because he can't do it. So deal with the people that you have and try to inspire the people. Have administrative courage. Make decisions. You do not have the luxury many times of getting all the information to make the best decision possible. Just make a decision. Just do something. Lead from the front. Know yourself. What I would say, I'm not saying that in a Socratic sense, I'm saying that know what your strengths and weaknesses are. I tend to be a leader, but you need leaders and administrators. I am the world's worst administrator. If you looked at my office or asked my wife, she will verify this. Every time I've taken a leadership position, I bring an administrator with me. Some people are administrators. I've mentored those people, and I tell them, bring a leader with you. Some people have a rare gift. They are both administrators and leaders. I've seen very few of them, but some people have those gifts. But know where your strengths are and bring people to help you manage, because they will complement your strengths. And then what I intended to speak on, but as we talked at the table, I'm going to cut this short and just kind of open things up to ask, for you to ask about what's going on around the world. What I wanted to talk about was leadership and compassion. Before he became the Honorable James Webb, Senator from Virginia, he was an official in the Navy Department. Before that, he was an author. Before that, He was a Marine Corps officer, and before that he was a plebe at the United States Naval Academy. He wrote a series of books before re-entering public service in the political life, and one of those books was A Sense of Honor. I read this book in 1983. I read a passage in this book, and as soon as I read it, I wrote down in the margin words to live by. I think this has everything to do with leadership, especially for the 1%ers, the one who have a college education. Book is about a young man who wants to be a Marine Corps officer. He's in Annapolis. His name is William Fogarty. His nickname is Wild Bill because he is gung-ho for the Corps. Most Marines are like that. And he just cannot wait to be a United States Marine Corps officer. His hero, two-term assignment in Vietnam, decorated combat veteran wounded, is Captain Lenahan, and Captain Lenahan has taken Fogarty under his wing, and he's teaching him how to be a Marine Corps officer. The day comes in the senior year for branch assignments, and the young midshipmen are walking in to Smoke Hall. If you've ever been to Annapolis, you know that's down there on the end of campus. They're walking into Smoke Hall to get their commissions. Webb picks up the story, or I'm going to pick up Webb's story, when Fogarty is walking into Smoke Hall to get his commission. Fogarty walked down the hallways that had sucked up his youth like a dry sponge, basking in memories, little pockets varnished with so many layers of his own energy and pain that he knew a part of him would always stay in Bancroft Hall. He walked into Smoke Hall as if he were marching at parade. Midshipmen and officers bustled about, giving the huge old room a frenetic, undirected energy that reminded him of an open-air marketplace. But he had not come to shop. The Marines were set up in a small side room to the left as he entered the hall, as if they had opened a recruiting office. A Marine Corps flag hung over the room's doorway, and a half-dozen officers stood at the entrance, like sirens, luring them into their sanctum. They were fathers, they were mothers, they were brothers, they were sisters. After years of waiting at their fringes, he was finally going to join them. But in a moment, it was over, like a marriage ceremony. Years of anticipation and years of union linked together with 5 minutes of formality. Captain Lenahan was waiting for him by the doorway. He put an arm on Fogarty's shoulder and handed him a Marine Corps tie clip. "Take care of your troops, Mr. Fogarty. Not congratulations, not obey orders, not even welcome to the Corps. Take care of your troops." It was a commandment carried in Lenahan's combat scars as if they were etched in stone. Fogarty fingered the tie clasp. It seemed an almost trivial gesture for such an overwhelming moment, as if he had just won a trinket at a carnival instead of entering a life's work. But the emblem gleamed at him. Lenahan patted his thick shoulder again, and he felt warm, thrilled, and explosive. "Take care of your troops, Mr. Fogarty." "I will, sir. I swear to God I will." Compassion. Compassion for the people you serve, whether you go into business, teaching, spiritual life, the military, medicine. Compassion for the people you serve, and compassion for the people you lead. How strong of a team are you guys going to build? You're going to be leaders. You're destined. You can't get out of it. The dean's going to call you in and say, "I want you to start a school of criminal justice." And you'll say, "I just want to teach." But you have to do what you are destined to do. How are you going to lead 1%ers? Well, I can look in your eyes right now and I'm getting an idea. It is compassion. A few years ago, long time ago. Golly, I'm getting old. My kids were really little, and I was teaching them the great American game of Monopoly. We were having fun, and I was telling them, you know, okay, here's how they looked at that money. They thought they were as rich could be. They thought it was the greatest thing in the world. We were buying and selling and going to Park Place, going to Boardwalk, and just having a great time. And my daughter Katie, she's always lucky. She's winning everything all the time. My son Charlie wasn't being so lucky, and he finally lost all his money. And I said, okay, that's it, Charlie, you're bankrupt. That's the game. Daughter looked at me and said, what? Charlie looked up at me. Tear was forming in his eye. And I said, well, those are the rules. You try to bankrupt the other person. And then they leave the game. Charlie looked and said, that's okay, Dad. That's okay, Katie. Katie looked at me like, what kind of game is this? And she looked at Charlie and said, wait a minute. What if I give Charlie half my money? I said, well, I guess we could keep playing. Okay. And she just scooted overboard. Charlie, okay. And we were rolling the dice, going to Park Place, going to Boardwalk, and having a great time. I was trying to teach them a board game. They were trying to teach me leadership. I hope it took. We need people to go into the professions. This world needs people so badly. In a minute, we're going to talk about what I think is a new way of fighting. I think war transformed in the French Revolution, and we're living in another transformation of that today. We need people who understand this, because the last thing we want to do, if I can draw on my old law enforcement background, the last thing any police officer wants to do is fight. You want to come home alive at the end of the shift. We need people to understand, who understand much more than cable news presents, who understand that we don't need to spend our time yelling at one another. We need to spend our time talking to one another, who understand that there's diversity in the world, that the Federal Investigative Academy in Islamabad, I loved it. The Imam would see me each morning, and he would say, peace be with you, and my response would be, Assalamu alaikum. If he saw, or walaikum assalam, and if he saw me first, or if I saw him first, I would go assalamu alaikum, and he would respond, and also with you. There's room for understanding. What are you going to do, 1%ers? Take care of your troops. The world needs it. Take care of your troops.